David Adams, the president of the Virginia Shooting Sports Association. David, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Cam. How are you tonight?
I am great. Thanks for coming on the program.
No problem. Thanks for the invite.
No problem on my end as well. Now, we are about 2.5 weeks away?
Something like that.
From Election Day in Virginia. And there was a debate earlier this week where the two gubernatorial candidates, Bob McDonnell, the current Attorney General, and the candidate endorsed by the NRA's Political Victory Fund, and Cray Deeds, state senator, and the Democratic candidate, were asked about private sales of firearms at gun shows, right?
That's correct.
All right, and this is one of the areas in which there's disagreement between the two candidates. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, actually, it's about the only area of disagreement when it comes to firearms, but to gun owners in Virginia, I think it's a big disagreement.
All right, and so what exactly, did we learn anything new from what the candidates had to say at this debate?
No, in fact, Cray Deeds has pretty much set himself in concrete that he has committed himself that if he's elected governor, that he will push for and sign a bill that would require background checks on private sales and gun shows. And Bob McDonnell has very articulately explained that, that's not necessary, that everybody wants to bring up the Virginia Tech, and Cray Deeds does it all the time, bring up the Virginia Tech situation. And Bob McDonnell has made it very clear that gun shows had nothing to do with Virginia Tech shootings, and that private sellers at gun shows are not what's causing crime or people that commit a crime with firearms. So he stood his ground, as well as Cray Deeds standing his ground for his position.
And it is, I have to say, David, nothing surprises me anymore from gun control advocates. But the fact that they would use the murders at Virginia Tech to push for gun control legislation, when, as you say, the killer at Virginia Tech did not, as far as we know, even attend a gun show, much less purchase a gun at a gun show.
Well, that's right. And, I've made the point before that, knowing what Cho's background was, how he was a very introverted individual, to believe that he would have gone to a gun show and tried to purposefully find an individual that would not do a background check would, stretch the imagination, because he would have to go down the aisle and ask him, are you going to do a background check? Are you going to do a background check? Because, you don't have tables upon tables of private individuals with a table full of firearms. It just doesn't happen that way, although the anti-gun folks would like you to believe it does. So it's definitely not what the situation was that caused that incident. It's not something that happens regularly or very rarely, if ever, it's something that occurs. So what concerns me as a gun owner, and what I've tried to make the point to our membership and to other gun owners I've spoken with, that if Cray Deeds will fall for an emotional argument for this issue, what other emotional argument is he going to fall for if he's elected governor? And it just reminds me of the situation in Tennessee earlier this year with the restaurant ban, and how that governor who had campaigned saying he would repeal the ban, and then he vetoes the bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very valid point, David, because, the gun control advocates, they're probably the biggest arrow in their quiver is the emotional argument. It's not logic. It's certainly not logic. It's not really statistics. What they have are emotionally compelling stories and anecdotes, really, that they then try to use and say, look, I just told you this anecdote. Now, why won't you vote for my gun control legislation?
Absolutely. We saw it in 1999 after Columbine. We saw it again in 2007 after Virginia Tech. They'll use any tragedy to try to push their political agenda. It's fortunately not been successful here in Virginia so far, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen here by electing the right guy governor, and that's in this election, that's Bob McDonnell.
All right. Now, are you hearing anything about any of the down ticket races, the races for state delegate?
I have some friends who actually work campaigns, and I keep in touch with them. And, there was some concern earlier about some of the delegates. They were facing some strong challenges. This is a year that, I think the other side, the minority, has to pick up about 7 seats to to take over the majority. And I've heard in the past that there were some seats they were concerned about, but now I think that the pro-gun folks, and we've got a list of them on the VSSA website, I think we're going to be fine. We're going to have a pro-gun majority no matter who is controlling the House of Delegates come election night. And I think the gun owners will still have our majority. We just want to make sure it's not a slim majority, but it's a good, strong majority that we can count on support to beat back the bad legislation and to keep pushing good legislation that we've pushed in the last several years.
Yeah, because that's been one of the problematic things. I mean, you talk not only about the governor of Tennessee turning around and vetoing or a campaigning for restaurant carry and then opposing it, but I remember when Governor Kane was running for office, he too was one of those who said, look, I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. I'm not going to veto any pieces of legislation. Whatever we have, whatever the legislature sends me, I think that he said is what, he'll consider. And then, David, it's not like Tim Kaine bent over backwards to sign pro-gun pieces of legislation while he was in office.
No, it's not. And the bills that have really mattered, with the exception of the Bloomberg bill, because that was a very important piece of legislation. Mm-hmm. But the bills that have mattered to gun owners in Virginia the last 2 to 3 years has been repeal of the restaurant ban, and he's made a point, and a couple other ones that had to do with self-defense, being able to keep a firearm in your glove compartment even if you don't have a concealed carry permit. That kind of stuff he's made a point of vetoing and done it very overtly.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, as always, sir, I'm glad you could join us on the program tonight and look forward to doing it again very soon.
All right, Cam. Thanks a lot.
David Adams, the president of the Virginia Shooting Sports Association.